Hi everybody, this is Bastiaan, and today we're going to take a look at surprise weapon in the Italian 4-knight game. So I'm playing black. Play starts out with e4, e5, knight f3, knight f6, knight c3, knight to c6. So we're seeing the 4-knight game. And now bishop to c4, the Italian variation. And now the surprise move is knight to a5. And I haven't seen this played before. Arena doesn't have a name for it. Thinks this is the Halloween gambit, but it surely isn't. Knight a5 threatens the bishop on c4. And this move looks like it just drops a pawn for black, because now e5 is hanging. So sure enough, white captures on e5, protecting the bishop. Knight takes bishop, knight takes knight. So it looks like I'm down a pawn with no real compensation. White has one pawn in the center and two pieces developed, and black simply has one minor piece developed and is down a pawn. But I can immediately recapture the pawn. Knight takes pawn, and of course the knight can be recaptured by knight takes knight, but then black can take control of the center and fork both knights and regain his minor piece. And although the engines still prefer white slightly, I'm not so sure, and black has the bishop pair, whereas white has only one bishop, which is actually the point of this opening. That's to maintain the bishop pair and take one of white's bishops out. So after knight takes pawn, white can recapture with knight takes knight, and he probably should and allow the fork, but instead he castles, hoping for a pin on the open e-file on the king. So knight takes knight, rook to e8, bishop e7, and now white recaptures with pawn takes knight. So now we're seeing a second minor advantage for black. Not only does he have the bishop pair, but also white is having a backwards pawn on the c-file. d5, taking control of the center, chasing the knight. Knight e5, black castles. Bishop to f4, so we're seeing the pieces being developed. Rook to e8, and queen to f3. Now, queen to f3 looks like a normal enough developing move. It allows the rook on the half-open file, creates a threat on d5, and protects the bishop on f4. And we'll see later why that is important. Bishop to f5, immediately attacking the backwards pawn, and white continues with rook to the half-open file. So now both pawns are under attack, but my d pawn is much more valuable, being developed and being a central pawn, and white's pawn is a backwards pawn on c2. So I really don't want to trade them off. So how can we prevent it? Bishop e4, which was played, is one way. This protects the pawn, attacks the queen, but more importantly, also locks out the rook to the defense of the knight on e5. And that'll be important later. Now, there are a few continuations. If white plays queen to e2 to protect the pawn, then black can continue with bishop to d6. And now we're seeing an attack on the knight, and the knight cannot move, or white will lose the bishop. And of course, Queen and rook cannot come into the defense because of the knight on e4 that is blocking king and queen and rook. This of course is all bad for white. So retreating to e2 isn't an option. White can play queen to g3, which does protect the knight and indirectly the bishop and indirectly the knight. But then simply bishop takes pawn and black is up a pawn. So that doesn't seem ideal either. The best move for white, which I didn't see in the game but was later found by analysis, is queen to h5, protecting the knight, g3, chasing the queen. Notice there are no safe places on the 5th rank. Queen to h3. Now bishop to d6, attacking the knight. But then knight takes pawn, attacking the queen. King takes knight, queen takes pawn, check. And then the game is a draw by perpetual check. For instance, king f6, bishop e3 to block out the king. And now black has one move, but he can't really do anything with it. Let's say bring the queen in, queen e7, and white can continue with perpetual checks, and the game is a draw. But this kind of draw was very difficult to see. I didn't see it myself in the game. Neither did white. And instead of losing a pawn or losing a minor piece, white chooses an exchange sacrifice. Rook takes bishop on e4, hoping for counterplay with rook attack on the queen on d8. Pawn takes rook, attacking white's queen. Rook takes queen, pawn takes queen, rook takes rook check, rook recaptures, and knight takes pawn on f3. Now white is up one pawn but down an exchange, so material wise I am up one pawn. Bishop to d6, hoping to trade off minor pieces. White takes on the bishop on d6, hoping I will create an isolated pawn. But in this particular case I don't have to. Rook to d8 to attack the bishop. And the bishop cannot be protected by pawn or knight. And the bishop cannot move because of rook to d1 checkmate. This allows me to capture the bishop without isolating my pawns. So white plays g4 to prevent all back rank mates. I take on the bishop, c4, c5 to block the c file, king f1, rook d1 check, king e2, rook to a1, and now the rook is in an excellent position to take out the pawns on the 2nd rank. a3, rook a2. Now it doesn't matter what white does, but he will lose pawns. King to d3, rook take pawn, knight to e5, and rook to a2, threatening the capture of the a3 pawn, which will create passed pawns on the a file. And at this point white resigns the game. So I hope you enjoyed watching this game and gave you some new ideas in for a nice game, and thanks for watching and have a great evening.